right, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in wherever you may be listening from across the Aloha State. Uh, got an exciting episode. Going to talk Medicare. Paul, how's it going?
It's going good. Had a great weekend. Super excited for this episode.
Awesome, awesome. A little wet outside today here on
Yeah.
this Monday we're recording, but yeah, we're excited for this. Medicare, super important topic for a lot of our listeners, and we're just going to cover some high level stuff here. Our special guest is Donne Soga from Premier Benefit Consultants. And we really appreciate her being on and sharing her knowledge with us. And with that, I'll just turn it right over to you, Donne, if you want to introduce yourself to our listeners, tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you grad, or anything you're comfortable sharing.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Paul, for having me. Yes, I am with Premier Benefit Consultants. Been with them for about 10 years. I'm born and raised here on Oahu, grew up in Manoa. So I'm a Roosevelt High School grad, University of Hawaii, Manoa. Kind of didn't stray far from home. And but have since moved to Mililani. Mililani is now my home, and this is where I've raised my family. So my children are now grown. I have two adult children, my husband, and blessed with one granddaughter.
Awesome.
So that's me. I spent a good part of my career in retail prior to making this shift over to employee benefits and ultimately Medicare benefits. But this is where I found my happy place. This is where I feel I can make a difference and help people understand something that is at times quite complicated.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So super thankful to have you on, as Jason said. And so we'll break down some of those basics that hopefully make it a little bit more clear, a little less complicated. Today we're going to talk about, Medicare Part A, B, C, and D, just those basic high level, and then we'll just get some insights from you. Let's just start talking about, we'll just start with Part A, so like, what is it? What would someone need to do, or just some of your general thoughts about what Part A is?
Okay. Well, original Medicare consists of two parts. Part A is the hospital portion. And for most people, if they have worked 40 quarters by the time that they're 65 years old, and 65 is that magic age that you become eligible for Medicare, they do not have to pay a premium for Part A. So that's kind of a nice thing. What Part A covers is kind of simple to understand. It's the inpatient hospital care. It's some limited home care, skilled nursing care, and hospice care falls under Part A.
Yeah. Yeah. So 40 quarters, right? And you said 65 is that magic age, so 40 quarters is basically, if you work 10 years straight, that's, 4 quarters in each year. And that gets you qualified for Part A and not having to pay a premium. That's pretty big. So for me, I think it's something that most people sign up for, right? Like, hey, it's like you're turning 65, you have to at least make some kind of notice or something like that, right? Jason, any thoughts on Part A?
No, that's good. So we don't pay premiums, and that's because most of us are paying throughout our working careers into the system, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want people to think it's it's too much of a free lunch. It is a free lunch, but most of us pay it.
Yeah, and I do have to clarify to people too, it is, a zero premium part of Medicare, but it doesn't mean that everything covered under Part A is free. So we still have co-payments and co-insurances for the eligible services under Part A, but at least you're not paying a monthly premium for it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And Part A, Donnie, where that's people are auto enrolled in that, correct? You need to actually opt out. Am I correct there?
So that's a good question, and I get asked that all the time. So it depends. If you are collecting Social Security prior to age 65, then the government will auto-enroll you in Medicare, and you'll be auto-enrolled in both parts, A and B. And if you do not need B, and we'll talk a little bit about why you might not need B, then you need to let them know that you want to defer your Part B. But many people do not collect Social Security. They're waiting for their full retirement age. So at age 65, they have not started their Social Security benefit. So for those individuals, they should not just wait and wait, looking for their Medicare card. It will not come. They have to actually enroll.
Yeah,
gotcha. So for some people, they do get auto-enrolled.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you mentioned Part B just a few seconds ago. So let's go into Part B. Tell us a little bit about Part B, some things that people need to know, and some of your insights that you have for it.
Okay, so Part B is kind of the meat of Medicare, because that's your medical portion. Part B covers things like doctor visits, diagnostic services like lab work or x-rays, MRIs. It also covers medical procedures and surgeries. It covers some medications that are infused or injected. But for the most part, this is the portion of Medicare that people will be utilizing. We hope that we don't end up in the hospital. So for Part B, everybody pays a premium for Part B. And the premium is determined by your income. So currently for 2023, the premium starts at $164.90. It will change from year to year, and the premium is adjusted if you're considered a high income earner. So just for people to be aware that, you know, if your income is higher than the average, but what the government determines is average, you will have a higher premium for Part B.
Yeah, awesome. And, you know, for us, you know, as planners, right, that part of that is, you know, making sure their income, maybe as they pull distributions from 401ks or, you know, any type of retirement plan through the state, all those things add up to pushing their premiums higher, right? So yeah, that's a super good point.
Yeah, it's an adjusted gross income. So, you know, somebody who has rental income property, you know, that all gets factored in there. So it is something that as planners you should be aware of. It helps them budget and know what to expect. So often when I meet with somebody prior to them turning 65, it's good for them to know that, because they know what to expect. Not quite a shock. An important thing about Medicare Part B is Medicare Part B does come with a late enrollment penalty. If you do not apply for Medicare Part B at the time that you turn 65, and you have 3 months after your 65th birthday to apply, you could be assessed a late enrollment penalty. One exception, or one way that it gets waived, is if you have coverage from an employer group health plan. Gotcha. So if you still plan to work, you have that insurance, and it's a continuous coverage, it's a credible insurance with drug coverage, then you will be able to defer your Part B without penalty. So the credible employer group health insurance can be your own, or it could be your spouse's. So you could be covered under your spouse and choose to defer Part B. If you do not have credible employer coverage, then you should be picking up Part B at the time that you turn 65.
Yeah. Jason, any thoughts on Part B?
No, that's good stuff. I think maybe we'll have to revisit IRMA, right? That's the acronym. I had to look up what I always call it just IRMA, but the calculation. I think we should do an episode on that, and how, you know, with the 2-year, you know, it looks back 2 years to look at your income, and I think that'll be a discussion for another time. But
yeah,
correct
stuff. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's so good. And, you know, just for myself, having, you know, aging parents, you know, walking through these types of things with them, they're both still working and they're both older than 65. So just walking through that. And yeah, it's an important step to make, and just know what your options are. So yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, now we'll move into Part C, right? So tell us a little bit about it, maybe, you know, as you play a role in it, and yeah, you're just the overall in Part C.
So overall, the original Medicare Part A and B that the government provides for individuals who are eligible is a good health plan. It's going to be your health plan in retirement, when you no longer have something from your employer. It's generally a plan where you pay 20% out of pocket. Unfortunately, there are some things that are not covered by Part A and Part B, original Medicare. So there are a couple of parts, Part D and Part C, that can be added to original Medicare to complete your coverage. These parts come from private insurance companies, and that is where I step in. I represent and contracted with these parts, and because there are many choices, oftentimes it becomes, what do I choose? How do I know what to choose? But for the most part, one of the big missing pieces that Medicare does not cover that you need to complete your coverage for is drug coverage, prescription drug coverage. So Part D and Part C are two ways of getting that prescription drug coverage. I know you asked me about Part C. I just want to quickly do Part D.
Yeah.
Part D is your prescription drug coverage. So that's how you add on the prescription drug coverage. You often pay a premium for these other parts, and it will give you the drug coverage you need. Part C is another way of getting the drug coverage, because Part C plans, also known as Medicare Advantage plans, often include Part D drug coverage in their plans.
Yeah.
So you don't need both. You sign up for either Part C or Part D. In most cases, you would choose one or the other. There's a few exceptions, but for the most part, you pick one or the other, and you usually will get drug coverage through your Part C plan. A Medicare Part C plan, real quickly, it's not a supplement plan. So I just want people to understand it. It's not a secondary plan, but it is a Medicare Advantage plan.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm just curious, because one question that came to mind, and I apologize if you don't have this answer readily available. I imagine you do, though, because you're pretty well versed. But so like when someone's paying for like Part A and Part B, and they're claiming Social Security, that's typically like just automatically deducted from Social Security. Is Part C and Part D something different? Is it the same? How do they pay for it in that respect?
Okay, very good question. So as we most people will not have to pay for Part A, but the Part B premium.
Yeah, sorry.
It kind of goes back again to that. Are you collecting your Social Security?
Mm-hmm.
If they are, then the government will actually deduct the Part B premium automatically out of their Social Security benefit. So their Social Security benefit will be reduced a little. But if they're not, and they are retiring, but they can afford to wait another year before starting their Social Security benefit, then they will be billed. They will be billed for their Part B premium. When they select Part C or Part D drug plan, they can choose several different ways of paying for it. One of those options is to deduct it from their Social Security benefit if they are collecting. Oftentimes, they opt for an auto deduct out of their checking savings account, and they can always do the old-fashioned get a bill. That's usually the least. Try not to encourage people to do that, just because if you forget a payment,
Mm-hmm.
and retirees this is their stage of life. They're traveling. I went on vacation. The bill came in after we left. I was gone for 4 weeks, and the bill is late. So auto pay is the best.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, so thanks so much for sharing about Part A, Part B, and obviously Part C and D. Just such a great, just basic understanding of what those are, how they might interact with our listeners. And Jason, any last thoughts before we move on to the next part of our question?
No, that's it. And I just imagine there's once you get to making those decisions for the Part C and D, the amount of options to choose from has to be sometimes overwhelming, right? It's got to be a hard decision for a lot of people to sift through. Am I correct there, Donnie?
Correct. So that's the question they always want to ask me. Hey, Donnie, what's the best plan?
Right.
And I don't know if they're always happy with my answer, because my answer is always, it depends, because I got to find the best plan for you.
Yeah.
So it's not the same plan for everybody, but it does take some time of looking at what their needs are, what their budget is, who are the doctors they see, what are the medications they may be taking, and we just find a plan that best fits their needs.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a common response, even in our world. It depends, there's so many variables. And, as some of our friends like to say, like, it's a very personal, keep your finances personal, right? It's a very personalized decision for your individual needs.
Yes.
And I imagine even in some cases, it could be different, even between spouses, it could be different, right?
Yes.
So yeah, each individual has their own path and their own journey. So that's awesome. I love it. So yeah, just moving on here, just kind of like a little bit more basics of like, how would one apply for Medicare? And we already mentioned 65, so I know we'll be kind of tied around that, but like, what are some other basics to know about applying for it, what they would need to do, and
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so we know 65 is that magic age. So the initial enrollment period actually starts 3 months before their 65th birthday month. So that's when they can start applying. The effective date will still be their birthday month. But I love the planners of the world that love to do things ahead of time, because it's nice to have it done. If anything, any glitches, there's time to correct it and everything's good to go when we need it to. But they give you 3 months before your birthday month, the birthday month, and 3 months after. So it's a 7-month window. And if you apply any time in that window, you will not be subject to late enrollment penalties. Just keep in mind, though, if you apply during your birthday month or the 3 months after, it delays the start of your Part B. So, if you wanted the say your birthday is in October and you wanted that Part B to start October 1st, you apply in October, it will start November 1st. So you kind of missed the boat for the October 1st effective date. So as I mentioned earlier, those collecting Social Security prior to their 61st birthday, they're automatically enrolled and they will receive their card about 3 months before their birthday. But for the others, it's an online enrollment process. It's pretty simple. It's, creating and logging into Social Security SSA.gov account. You can do the phone in. It's not the easiest number to get through Social Security. So I would say online is the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. And something that I typically recommend, even for, people that aren't 65, people that are younger, people, that might be even in their 30s, right? Creating a Social Security administrative login is still something smart to do, right? If you wait till you're 65, that's fine. But, creating a login is, you can create one right now for however old you are. So you can track, your all kinds of things. But yeah, that Social Security website is where you'll do most of your Medicare enrollments and all that kind of notifications and filings, things like that. So yeah, super helpful tool and resource with that Social Security website. So like we said, let's say, I know we kind of addressed this a little bit, like, so they're 65 years old, they're still working, you'd mentioned like, there's no penalty if they're still working and they have a meaningful plan. But so like, what are some other things to consider? Like if you're still working, you're 65 and, what might those people think about?
Okay. So if you're still working and you do have that employer health plan coverage, it does depend on whether your employer has less than 20 employees or 20 or more employees. If your employer is a large employer, 20 or more employees, then your primary insurance is your employer group plan and the Medicare is secondary. But it's the reverse if you work for small employers. So Medicare becomes the primary insurance if your employer group is under 20 employees. So it is recommended that those individuals sign up for Part A and B because that is going to be the primary insurance. The employer group insurance, the carrier could tell them, hey, we're supposed to be secondary insurance. You don't have complete coverage in your primary insurance. That's not our problem. You should have had Medicare Part A and B in place. We're not going to cover that fully cover that surgery because you needed to have Part B in place. So it is better for them to have Part B in place. And that's what that's the way that the government coordinates the benefits with an employer group plan.
Gotcha. So basically, you know, if you might be someone listening that, you know, isn't working for the state or for the government in some respects, you know, obviously those employers are more than 20, but if you happen to be someone that is listening to it with less than 20 employees, this is such an important part because that might be something that we don't even think about. Like, why is there this exemption? Well, you know, that's just part of the government's rules. So really important piece to just know and be aware of, right? Because maybe you're married to someone that has a small business where they have less than 20, you know, it's going to impact them. So yeah, super important point, Donnie, and thanks so much for referencing that and pointing that out because it is a key. Because I mean, I imagine there are lots of examples of people who didn't know that, got to a procedure or got to some sort of medical event, you know, and their insured probably more than likely said that to them. Yeah, it's like, sorry, we're not supposed to be your primary. We're not going to cover all of this, and that's an unforeseen problem that could have been handled. Yeah, is that something that's happens? That's tough.
Yes, yeah. So it's something that I need to educate and make them aware of.
Yeah.
But for the most part,
yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry. So for the most part, you know, if they continue to work and they have the larger, they're working for a larger group, they can defer their Part B.
Gotcha. Yeah. Awesome. So, you know, Jason, any thoughts on what we've talked about so far?
No, I think that's pretty good about, you know, enrolling and, you know, before, after 65. Maybe we pivot over to, let's say, we got somebody who's all signed up, and let's talk about if they want to change their coverage later on. So like, I know there's an open enrollment period, but what that process is, how simple it is, or things to consider if you are going to change your your Medicare insurance.
Right. That's a good question, Jason. So, you know, Medicare allows their members an annual enrollment period. It's every year from October 15th to December 7th. So this period is for somebody who's not happy with their current plan and they want to make a change, or somebody who for some reason never signed up. They got their A and B and they just totally forgot, like, I don't take any drugs. I didn't know I was supposed to sign up. This is your chance to do it. They may be assessed some late enrollment penalties, but at least this is their chance to get that coverage. It's a fairly easy process. But if you make a change during this period, the effective date is January 1st of the upcoming year. So it's not an immediate effective date, but it does enable them to make a change. So, you know, we always want people to know that when they choose a Medicare Part C or Part D plan, it's not a decision that they're making that's for the rest of their life. We understand that their health can change. The plans even change annually. And so what worked for them at age 65 may not be working as well now that they're 75. So it is always a good idea to review the plan. And that's what I do during this period. I sit down with people, get an idea of why are they asking me? Like, there must be some pain points. Is it the cost of their medication? Is there a doctor that's not happy with the plan that they have? Is there a benefit that they hear a friend has from their plan and they want that benefit? You know, whatever it is, we can look at it. And sometimes we find that there is a better plan for them. Sometimes I sit down with them, we go through their needs, and we say, you know what, you are in your best plan. This is where you need to be. I know you want this benefit, but your primary care doctor does not accept that plan. So we got to stay where we are. This is the plan all your doctors accept, and we don't want to, you know, jeopardize any of those relationships with your doctors. So yes, I'm happy to sit down and review people's plans to determine whether a change should be made. And I didn't say this in the beginning, but there's never a charge for my services. So it's always a good idea to give me a call. You know, they wonder, and this way they can know either they're in a good plan or maybe there is a better plan for them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I remember you explaining to me several years back now was one of those decisions is because they really like their insurance that they had with their employer, or they maybe potentially their whole working career, and they wanted to, maintain that relationship. And from what I understand from you, that is possible, and that might be the right solution for you. But again, that might not be the best solution for you. It just depends. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And there's two things that we can kind of count on each year is that the plans are good just for a calendar year. So we are getting ready to get 2024 plan information. So there's always a chance that the plans will change a little bit. Many years they change very little, but we do have some years where there's some more significant changes. But the other thing is I always tell people, and we are constantly changing as individuals. So, their health needs may have changed, their financial needs may have changed. Maybe a plan they could afford before is getting harder for them to afford. So maybe we should look for something that fits into their budget better. So we definitely want to take all of that into consideration. And if they're happy, it's not necessary for them to review the plan each year. It does automatically continue if they don't make a change. So they don't have to re-enroll each year.
Awesome. That's super good. So I'm just curious, and this can kind of go in any direction you feel, but like, what are some common concerns or questions, or like something that you feel like this is something that comes up enough that's probably worth sharing, to just a really broad audience in that sense?
Okay. Well, one of the more common questions I get asked during annual enrollment period is, I saw a TV commercial. They were talking about this benefit. They're talking about getting cash back. They're talking about dental benefits. They're talking about, so this is the period where the advertising is heavy. There's a lot of Medicare commercials. There's a ton of mail that's coming into their mailbox, and they have to make it attractive to catch their attention. Otherwise, they would be tossed into the trash, or the commercial would be ignored. So that's the question I get asked. Hey, I saw a commercial, can I get extra dental benefits? Can I get cash back? The benefits are not always benefits that everybody's eligible for. So we have to make sure that they're, and they always tell me, well, how come they didn't say that? Well, there's too much to say on a commercial. So they're just saying, do you have Medicare? You could be missing out. You could be, and it could be. So that's the most common question. They are always looking for ways to get something extra. And I'll just help them to see if that is something extra that they can get, or you're not eligible for that because it's not, it's not, maybe it's a financial, it's only a benefit for individuals with lower income, for example.
Yeah, that makes, hey, I think a general rule is not every commercial is meant for every single person. There's a lot of commercials out there that we should not respond to, especially as it gets later in the evening, if some people are up really, really late. But yeah, no, that's so good. I think, a lot of people, they hear those things like, oh, like, yeah, how can I do this? And, it might not be the right situation. And I think just, as we said earlier, like, that's why someone like you is important. That's why working with people that know your situation is important, because they're going to look at what's best for you and your situation, not, some other shiny thing out there.
Some of those are national advertising. So it may be something not available in Hawaii.
Okay.
So, I just always said, don't call those numbers. Give me a call first, because I can tell you that, yes, we have that available in Hawaii. No, we don't. Or this is who it's available to. Just don't want them to enroll in something that puts them in a worse situation and causes them to lose benefits.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, like, maybe share, like, you don't have to share like specific information, but like maybe like a positive situation where like, like this was actually like one of my favorite reasons why I do what I do. Cause I love your passion about helping these people. And I'd love to just share like a really positive situation where, your value was expressed far more than dollars and cents. You know, it's like it actually like made a life change for these people or these families. Like I know this is kind of like off the cuff, but I'm just curious. I'm sure something can come to mind.
Yeah.
But it's like a short little story about someone you help.
Well, one of the demographics that has a lot of benefits available to them are individuals who have limited income and assets. And oftentimes they don't have somebody to help them. So they just sign up for a regular plan, but there are some special plans for them. And so one lady was talking about her need for dental. And on those particular plans, there are dental benefits. And she said, well, but I don't have that much money. How much is it going to cost? I said, no, it's not going to cost you anything extra. It's a zero premium plan, but there were going to be some dental benefits on that plan. And she was just so happy to be able to afford to get dental services because dental health is related to their overall health and it's important, but it tends to be the neglected part of their health if they can't afford, right? I mean, they go to see the doctor, they get their medications, and dental's only like if I have money. So to be able to give her the opportunity to go and get the dental work that she needed, yeah, that was a great feeling to give her a benefit. And it was just a matter of switching her to a different plan.
Yeah.
So.
And it was just a matter of knowing that there are options for those different situations, right? So not everybody listening will be eligible for that specific benefit because they might not have that income need or that qualification. But those that are, if they don't ask, if they don't know, then the best thing that they could do is listen to this and just ask, right? The worst thing they could do is choose to do nothing if they have no idea, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's so good. And obviously like we all have those stories of just like, yeah, that's why I do what I do. And so thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
Any other thoughts or any other concerns that maybe come to mind? If not, we can keep moving.
No, we can keep moving.
Yeah, awesome. So just curious, and again, we're not going to dive deep into Medicaid in this conversation, but obviously someone's gonna be like, hey, what's Medicare? What's Medicaid? What are the differences? If you feel comfortable, like high level, like what are like, one or two things to think about, like why Medicare is different and why Medicaid is different.
Okay. It's actually a common question because they sound alike.
Yeah.
Some people get confused. So Medicare is a federal government program, and you do qualify by age. So it's that when you turn 65, there are some people who can qualify for Medicare below age 65. But for the most part, it's an age-related benefit. But Medicaid is a state program. So it's a state program. Each state runs their program a little differently. But they receive federal funding, and they even have different names. So in Hawaii, we call it MedQuest. But Medicaid is based on income and financial needs, so income and assets. So you can qualify for Medicaid at any age. But I do have seniors, 65-year-olds that are eligible for both. And this is that population that is eligible for plans specifically designed for a dual member, a member who has Medicare and Medicaid, like that lady that I spoke of earlier. She just didn't. So they can enroll in a regular Medicare Advantage Part C plan, or she didn't know there was the special one for her. And that's the one that had the extra benefits. Because what happens for those individuals is Medicare, when they turn 65, becomes their primary insurance, and Medicaid becomes secondary. So the state is happy when they become 65-year-old and they enroll in their Medicare. In fact, they require them to, because the state now becomes the secondary payer. And that is why it enables them. There's dual eligibility, enables them to get some extra benefits. And Medicare is the one that adds on some added benefits. So it enhances their Medicaid benefit. They don't lose anything they previously had, because there are many benefits tied to Medicaid that Medicare does not provide. There's food and housing benefits that are tied into Medicaid, and that's not part of Medicare, but it definitely enhances their medical coverage by having.
Yeah, I mean, so really just understanding, like, again, Medicare is something that most people will have access to, and Medicaid is really going to be for those who qualify for it, who are typically lower income or lower asset thresholds, which again, those people need these supports. These people need that assistance from the government in those situations. So yeah, so now like kind of like I guess flipping that coin maybe to the other side, which, you know, talking to like state of Hawaii employees or someone that has worked for the federal government, calling Hawaii home, like what are things that they need to be aware of when it comes to Medicare or benefits that they have? Is it something that they don't have to think about at all, or is it something that they need to be aware of and still need to apply for and still need to go through?
Okay, good questions. So they still do need to apply for their Medicare when they're approaching their 65th birthday. It's still the same for everybody. Kind of the same rule, you know. Are you going to keep working? Are you already retired? Yeah, state, city, even federal employees do have that privilege and that benefit to sometimes retire before age 65. So they're already retired. But if they need to apply for their Part A and B, so if they're not collecting Social Security, they got to take that step. But they are, so I'm going to address the state and city and county employees first, because they have a union plan that's provided to them. So it's not only the state and city and county, but if somebody is part of a union, oftentimes the recommendation is take your union plan. The unions have contributed and designed these plans to be stronger than what's out on that market. Depending on the union, depending on your years of service, those benefits can be very rich. The state and city and county workers have an extremely rich plan. And so the advice is always do not enroll in anything that you see on TV, mail that comes in, because it could jeopardize your benefits, their hard-earned benefits. And my mom, my dad was a retired state. And, you know, my mom would always say, why do they keep sending us all this mail if it doesn't apply? And I said, Mom, they don't know that. They just know you're over 65. They're just going to keep on sending you the mail. So the only mail you should be paying attention to is the one that comes from your plan. They will send you information about any changes to your plan and so forth, but you really don't need to be looking at any other plan information. So they should enroll in what they're eligible for with their union. Stay with that. Don't mess it up by enrolling in something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and those plans do require them, if they're retired, they require them to enroll in Part A and B. But if I may, I can talk a little bit about the federal, because the federal plan is a little different. Federal employees, they have an option to choose to enroll in Part A or Part A and B. They're not required to take both parts. If they do take Medicare Part A and B, they actually can add to their federal benefits. And I have helped many federal retirees, and they were unaware that they could add benefits. Does not jeopardize their plan, because their plan is designed differently from the state and city and retirees, and they can gain some things like free gym membership or additional drug coverage, or they even can apply for that cash back. So anyway, depending on the situation, a federal retiree may be able to get some added benefits with paying extra.
No, that's super helpful. And that's really like, that's the type of stuff that, you know, for us, for Jason and I, like, we're trying to just add as much value to those people as possible, right? Whether you're a state of Hawaii employee, city, county, you know, DOE, University of Hawaii, and federal, you know, that's the type of stuff that we're trying to add value for. So we're super thankful for you sharing that insight. Because I'll be honest, I didn't know that, right? So that's why it's important for people to just know that there are resources available, like yourself, that can just help them in their unique situations. So yeah, just thinking about this episode, just super insightful. I mean, I definitely learned a lot. Jason, any thoughts on before we wrap up here?
No, I think that was a great great overview for our listeners. And Donnie, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything with us.
So good.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Donnie, any last thoughts? Anything you want to leave our listeners and viewers with?
I think the most important thing I tell people is, I'm here to help them. So if there's any questions, there's no such thing as a dumb question. So, ask away. I'm happy to help to answer those questions. I'd rather them ask a question and understand what they're doing before they take action. Some actions are difficult to undo. So it's always better to ask before you do. And it's never too early to start planning.
I like it. I like that.
Yeah. I love people who start early and plan ahead. You guys are probably in the same boat.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Donnie. I think that wraps us up. And till next time.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Katita, Paul McWilliams, and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial or Inspire Advisors. For Jason Katita, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration. And for Paul McWilliams, investment advisory services are offered through Inspire Advisors LLC, a registered investment advisor with the SEC.